Hello, ladies and gentlemen, fellow virtual pilots. I'm at Kiev Boryspil Airport with a KLM A321 by ToLiss. This is a flight in commemoration of the totally bullshit attack and laughable attitude of the Russians towards the Ukraine. I actually visited Crimea myself in person many years ago, and the international community did nothing in 2014. They're still doing more this time, but let's put it this way. While this flight is going to be a lesson in flying, it should also be a lesson in the selfish and disgusting complacency of the West towards big countries that seem to scare them, like Russia and China. And I want you to think about that as we move towards 2022 and 2023, because it is totally preposterous, as one person put it, that our democracy seems to mean more and justify an attack than Ukraine democracy, which somehow is considered wrongly, of course, to be inferior to American or Canadian or Western European democracy. Retaliation isn't easy, but it's something that they're at least doing to some extent, but not in military form. So anyways, here we go. This is the ToLiss A321, latest version, 1.32 I think it is. I just updated it yesterday. It's February the 27th. I'm using weather from February the 24th in Kiev because I use X-Enviro. They don't have any updates since the 24th, since it looks like the day of the attack, which started I think around 3:50 a.m. or quarter to 4 a.m. in the morning of Thursday, February 24th, which is fitting. I'm going to Frankfurt EDDF. I'm at UKBB. That's Kiev Boryspil, Ukraine airport. Here we go. We're going to start. I've already done the flight plan. And we're going to be using again the winds from the 24th in Kiev. That's fine, as long as it's a lesson in how to take off and so on. It doesn't matter what day it is. So it's a historical start, but the present weather ending in Frankfurt Am Main Airport, EDDF. So we're going to start by powering on the aircraft, but before that, there's something very important you need to know. As far as I'm aware, I'm going to do whatever procedure I do know so far on the ToLiss, so the A321. It may be missing a few things because I'm just doing what I've learned, but I've learned quite a bit. I've been flying A320 and then the 321, 320 by Flight Factor, and then the ToLiss since a good 2 years now. I've become fairly familiar with it. So the important thing is, in real life, they do not have anybody on the aircraft until the fueling of the aircraft is completed and the fuel trucks have left. So, of course, I'm not on board technically right now, so I'm going to basically fuel the aircraft, but this is not real-time fueling. It's going to take very little time, so that's what we'll be doing first. Now, these doors, by the way, is annoying. The aircraft doors are open by default. In auto, the door one left is open, which is ridiculous. It's never open in real life, and ToLiss never fixed that, but we'll leave it at that. I can close them, but it looks like the cargo doors don't close. See, the door closes when I set it to close. In auto, it seems to do whatever it feels like. I think the idea is that you want to have it, they want to have it ready for the pilot, but I don't want to have it ready. I want to do it like the way Zibo does it in the 737 Boeing, 737-800. See, these cargo doors don't close now. They used to close, by the way, when I set them close. I think this guy closes. This might be a bug in the latest version. See, these don't close. This is the auxiliary cargo, secondary cargo, whatever they call it, bulk. Yeah. So here we go. We'll fuel first. We'll check the flight plan for you here. I'm using the AVS, Aviator's Tablet. Okay, so here is the beginning of the flight plan from SimBrief. We're gonna do our fueling first. Packs, hold this, there's the loading section. 220 packs. That's the maximum this has, by the way. The SimBrief seems to go up to 224. I may have to change that at some point. Okay, cargo 2.1. By the way, the weights in SimBrief never correspond to the actual aircraft weights. I don't even bother with that. I go with what the aircraft and the aircraft computer, flight management computer, shows me, or MCDU in this case for the Airbus, FMC for the Boeing. So that's the passenger and cargo settings. Now the fuel should be 11.5. This is all in kilograms, by the way. 11,500 kilograms with 40 minutes of contingency fuel. I gave it a little extra. 15 for extra, what do you call it? Reserve fuel, and 30 minutes for contingency fuel. I put 40 instead of 30. A little, not quite 45, but 40. I want to give it extra. So now this is fueled. We'll just double check that, and we're set here. Ground services. Now, last time this chocks was on, and my plane wouldn't move. You got to make sure this chocks is on or off, as you wish, but make sure before you start pushback that you go here manually to remove the chocks. I'll show you something because this is quite important. This is a new feature of ToLiss I'm not used to. That's why Zibo has this, but ToLiss did not. So. I can't show you properly here. Hold on. There we go. Now, see this? Watch the wheels. Chocks on. There. See? 1, 2, and 3. Chocks off. See? They disappear. If you want realism, I guess I'll leave the chocks on. That's fine. External power and high pressure air I'm turning on. I'm going to be turning on the systems now, electrically speaking. Nav and logo lights, external power connected. Dome should be bright because you're setting things up. Standby compass on. Emergency exit armed. Seatbelts on. Smoking is always on position. It's not auto because there's no smoking in pretty much any flight now. This is something I leave on. Not 100% certain about this crew oxygen. I have to check that again. Whether it was only turned on during a need, an emergency, or it's always on, but I'm leaving it on. Okay, now, check your air conditioning. First, get your lighting set for your panels, the FMC, the flight computer, MCDU. Lights on here for the panels. I will not be using any specific checklist because it takes too long during a video. And I don't necessarily agree with the order of the checklist in some cases. So, okay. Now, transponder, we can set that later, but I'll do it now. I'm setting it again for the faithful date of 24 February, 2402. VHF2 should be on. Marker, I don't need it for takeoff because it's going to start beeping at me. Multi-scan, GCS, System 1, Weather and Turbulence Mode, PWS. If there's anything there, you can point it out in the comments if I'm doing anything wrong. we're going to go open our back door, welcome the passengers in when they do board. Now, by the way, speaking of doors, let's open the cargo doors so they can start loading cargo. They're already kind of open anyways. Well, now they're opening. Okay, okay. They probably are open because there's no power to the aircraft. Anyway, that's fine. Nothing you can do either, by the way. I can't seem to save it in default position. Maybe there's a way. I figure it out later. It doesn't matter. Okay, now, next step. Get your GPS IRS system initialized. How do you do that? Top, center, top, upper top panel, basically. You set this to status. System 1. You can move this up a bit so you can see in the adhere section. And then the 3 IRS instruments. Wait till it's off battery. The on battery rate's off before you go to the next one. You'll see align until it's aligned and it'll disappear. You can do them in any order as far as I'm concerned. I've seen pilots do it this way. The 2 side and then the center ones. And set it to nav. Okay, we're set with that. Now, you don't need to turn on the fuel pumps now because you don't need them. You see here, IRS align in more than 7 minutes. Set the altimeter. UKBB. Oops. See, 24th of February, 0330 Zulu. Winds are from 190 at 01 meters per second. 5,000 meter visibility. Light rain, the negative is light. Brume is fog, BR. Scattered at 800, broken clouds at 1600. And this is, I found this curious. 01 is the temperature, Celsius, and 01 is the dew point. Okay, anyways, altimeter 1020, that's fine. Temporary 1000 Brume. Okay, so we do have some foggy areas for sure. That's it. This is the overhead panel. There's more up here, but most of that is not functional. You can see these are fuses, and these are lights. And some are other stuff that are not functional. Toilet. Yeah, okay. APU fire test. Engine 1 fire test. Engine 2 fire test. Now the other thing I kind of forgot here, again, doing a video sometimes distracting, I forget things, so bear with me. Turning on radios. You need to communicate with ATC like pretty much right away, so it's one of the first things you should be doing. Turning on left, the captain's side, the right radio, the first officer's side, and so forth. ILS, yeah, these don't work, huh? I don't understand why, but anyway. Okay. We have to wait till the IRS aligns, but we can go and start our loading our flight plan, at least. Now I have a route loaded already. So it's UKBB EDDF 01. You confirm it and then click insert. Alternate. Now, alternate should be EDDL. But let me just double check here, which is Stuttgart, I think. No, not that's EDDS. EDDL 05, right? Just like yesterday. Okay, so whoops, sorry, did it again. Flight number, it's KLM, guess what, 2402. The date of the day. Cost index, we get it from my calculation here, CI 8. By the way, the cost index controls the computer's command of thrust, mainly. The higher it is, the more fuel you spend, the harder, usually the faster the engines run. It can go up really high. It's more than 100, in fact. I don't know the maximum, but we can select here Align IRS. And yeah, so this is a very low cost index because the plane is pretty heavy. Now, the cruise flight level recommended is 340. Based on yesterday's thing, it's going to be much less than that. I'm going to set this at 300 right now. 340 is not accurate. It's a step climb thing. You can step climb to 340 eventually from the looks of it. Okay, now we're loaded, so I can fill this in. The weights. Init page 2. We go to the ToLiss Interactive Simulation Control System, TISCS, and we go to loading performance. Here we go. Anything orange you can fill, you can actually fill this in 2 to 25. Zero fuel weight, center of gravity, ZFWCG. So zero fuel weight right here. 71,980 kilograms. That rounds to 71, actually it's 72.0. Slash zero fuel weight, center of gravity, 27.8. Whoop, I did it again. Every time you move your mouse, the damn thing uncenters itself. 27.8. Block is the block fuel. 11.5 or 11,500 kilograms. It's not a long distance, but it's like a medium haul, I guess. You might even call it short haul. Well, medium. For this plane, it's medium. Because the plane handles up to about 3,000 nautical miles, so it can go more, 4,000. Really push it, yeah, you can do 4,000, 3,500. Okay, so that is done. While we're waiting for the IRS to align, we're going to double check and set up our departure and arrivals. Second page, here we go. Routing. UKBB 18 left, based on the wind's direction. By the way, just so you know, in case you're new to flight simulation, wind direction is coming at you. It's coming from 18. And runway 18 is facing downwards, literally exactly down south. And the wind is coming from 18 upwards. You have to have wind coming at you when you take off and land, because it gives lift. Coming from behind, the wind can push you when you're cruising, but you don't want that when you're taking off because it'll slow you down because you got wind counteracting the direction of the plane. Even though it's in the same direction as the plane, it doesn't work very well because the wings are designed for wind coming from the front of the plane towards the back, not the other way around. So 18 left is 180 degrees, or within about 3 degrees of that, within up to about 5 degrees, actually. Okay, so there's the SID, Standard Instrument Departure, CAFEL 1Z, 1 Zulu, CAFE 1Z. Transition none. If there was, we'd see some. And temporary insert. There we go. Now we're going to landing EDDF, runway 7 right here on the left side. Arrival 7 right. I can show you that afterwards. ILS 7 right. Karax 3D. So that'd be Kara 3D. 3 Delta. Via. Actually, it's DF654 that I picked for the via. Transition none. Okay. Now let me show you a bit about plan itself. So our GPS is aligned. You see your GPS primary on both MCDUs, flight computers. We're just going to add a bearing into the flight management computer as to the final destination and runway. That will be EDDF 07 right. Put it right there, and it shows me the bearing and distance in nautical miles. Now we're going to check the flight plan. Then constraint, plan mode. We can do this up here too. Go through it one point at a time using this arrow. Make sure there's no odd behavior. And sometimes there are waypoints with duplicate names and it ends up being the wrong waypoint halfway across the world that makes you go to. Or discontinuities, breaks in the line, breaks in the point. So far so good here. Now here is a manual approach because they expect vectors. See this here? You see this line going, keep going, where you have to actually turn here. So since we're not using air traffic control, I'm going to just click clear and then click next to the one I'm going to delete and clear again and delete this FPLN discontinuity, flight plan discontinuity. Now it's complete. You see the yellow line connecting them. This will now disappear and reset itself once I select temporary insert. And everything turns green. There you go. And you keep going just to check everything else. It should be good from this point on. What's in magenta or purple, if you wish, is restrictions, height or speed. In this case, height, altitude. The blue or cyan is the go around. Missed approach path. Goes to RID as per the chart. We're good here. Set it back to arc. You can also set it to nav if you want. We're good like this for now. Okay. Check our temperature, see how it's going here with the conditioning. Yeah, this cargo thing, I have to figure it out. I don't quite understand why cargo heat. I'm probably not setting something here. I'll let you know after some point. It's possible cargo heat isn't turned on yet because the doors are open. Yeah. So I'll set this a little harder, assuming you might be carrying animals. Yeah. But anyways, I hate animals in cargo. That would be crazy, but that's what we have to do. Okay, so now we are getting close to taxi. Status, pushback, and taxi. Some stuff I do different from the checklist. One of them is the flaps. I don't set the flaps until I'm close to the runway. You can test them so that you make sure you work, and in real life they probably do, at the gate even. How do you do that? Well, they need hydraulic power. You have to go here, turn on electrical pump. This is the hydraulic section. HYD, HYD. This section here, green, blue, yellow, even though they're all green, but anyway. You can test them that way. Now let's turn on the pump, the fuel pumps. If you turn the electrical pump on, you hear this funny dog noise, as some people call it. It's not very loud, but you can probably adjust that. I keep these volumes down a bit for when I do use pilot to ATC air traffic control, which is voice interface. Literally, it talks to you and you talk back. If there's too much noise in the background, it doesn't hear you properly. That's why. There we go. I increased the system volume so you can hear the electrical pump running. Now we can test our hydraulics. I'll open it for you so you can see it. I'd rather put this over here, actually. Let me see. Flight control. Pitch trim. Now, there's one thing we haven't entered in the MCDU that I just realized, but I'm testing ailerons, elevator, and speed brake, which you can see, whoops, lifting and going down. Wagging your tail, as I call this, elevator. Okay. So, now, let's finish the MCDU programming. Here it is. Takeoff performance. Okay. Open your ToLiss interactive simulation system. Takeoff performance. Flaps 2. Flight plan active. Use TOGA, takeoff, go around thrust. You may have to in some cases when you're very heavy or there's turbulence or something, or you need to take off quickly. Now, departure runway, UKBB 18 left, CG thrust, here center of gravity 28.9, and THS, but this really is the trim adjuster. Now, let's get V1s and V2, VR and V2 done. V1 and VR are the same. I don't do that. I put V1 less. So you have V1 is the point where you can stop still, theoretically. Okay. So the slower it is for you, the better. Though you don't want it unrealistic either. And V2 is the point where you left the runway and you're climbing. VR is V rotate, the speed at which you start raising the nose for taking off. Okay, there's something weird about this transition altitude. I don't know why. Hold on a second. Oh, it is 1010. 10,010. Yes, I think I remember this. Weird, but true. Okay. Now, the final thing is this guy. Go back again. It's the flaps 2 takeoff. And the trim, in this case, down 0.2. So you literally put exactly what it shows you there. DN, right here, DN 0.2. So 0.2. Flex 2 temp. That is indicated here. That's derated takeoff or reducing power for takeoff. So you spend less gas and also you don't move too fast. Your climb rate could be very high if your plane is light and you use full thrust, which is takeoff, go around thrust, TOGA. So next phase will be climb. I'm going to leave these in default. Cruise speed, descent speed, etc. Okay. Now let's go to secondary plan. Copy active. Now, you're in the secondary flight plan. This is very important to understand. Now you see here UKBB, ICAO code. And KBP is the IATA code, Boryspil International, Kiev, Ukraine. SID. We're using CAFL 1Z, Zulu, 18 left. When you take off, you have engine failure or some other thing, and you have to go around and come back, or land at the nearest airport. So what I do is, what you do actually, it would be take a waypoint that is reasonably close, but not too far, not too close from your takeoff runway. In this case, BBW01, which is right here. BB, hold on a sec. There are closer ones. Okay, you could probably use those. Now go to secondary again, please. Okay, secondary flight plan. Now, this is 6 nautical miles. This is 4 nautical miles. Yeah, at BB 110, which you don't really see here. BBN02. Okay, you can do a lateral revision, meaning where you're going to turn around. New destination. You go back to UKBB if you have a problem. You pre-program this in case you need it right after takeoff. Here we go. And arrival, again, 18 left. No, 18 left, or maybe 18 right. If they want landings in 18 right. Let's say we'll do 18 right. No star, because you're not going to bother with that. And via, well, that could be a bit difficult. Though you might want to do the same airport as before. Hold on. You go back to UKBB. Approach. 18 right. You get your point that is furthest away, usually Risvi. And that is... Now, the SID, in some cases, the standard instrument departure specifies for some countries what you need to do if you have an engine failure or something. There's nothing here that I can see. Notes about engine failure procedures. So you follow common sense, basically. Risvi at 15.8 nautical miles from the DME point. You go to Risvi. No via. Transition none. Insert. There, this takes you to Risvi, you see? So that's your secondary flight plan. Go back to flight plan. Double check that you entered everything. These are auto-tuned frequencies. I'm not going to bother with those. It's a bit too complicated because I'm not using that procedure right now. Okay, we're pretty much ready here. You notice optimal shows 287 flight level. I put cruise altitude at 300 to 30,000. 287 will be 28,700. Maximum recommended 34,900. This will change after we take off, so I might change the cruise altitude to say 32,000. We'll see. So, here we go. This is Airport Visual System, AVS. Here I am, the green arrow. These are the gates. I'm going to be pushing back with nose facing right, or tail facing left if you wish. There's 18 left. You can plan your little taxiway thing if you want, which I do so I know where to go. This doesn't have double taxiways, so I'm going to have to do this and this that. This is basically planning my taxi route. And this, there we go, accept. You see the magenta purple line, all set. Now, the pushback. First, check your chocks. Chocks are on, make sure they're off. Okay. We're going to start the APU first. Turn on the beacon, the red flashing light. Very important because this alerts ground crew and everybody else that you are going to be moving soon. All right, I didn't open the door yet. All right, that's fine. I'm supposed to let the passengers in. I forgot about that. Okie doke. Hold on. Let's do that. We can turn off the beacon now, I suppose. My mistake. Did everything but let the passengers in, but you know, it's something that you kind of have to know to do. It's my door's open now. Let's get the SAM gates in there. Here is Sam's own settings. I don't really care for this. We don't need them. So, yeah, I don't. It's not going to do me any good right now. I'm going to connect Sam to the second door, meaning the one that's right over here, because that's a more better place for loading. This thing doesn't have double jetties. This scenery doesn't anyway. They may or may not have it somewhere else. I don't know. So this should go to my second door. This is a long plane, the A321, so it would need people entering from slightly further to the back so that people in first class or business can go here and the rest can go back here more easily. It's closer to the middle of the plane. Close this door, open the other one. Kind of helps. There we go. I just aerated the plane a bit. That's fine too. There we go. Now, let's check air conditioning again. Okay, I think we can close the cargo doors. They're ready. See, these orange means they're open or active, and they're going to be turning green pretty soon when they close. Here's the second door that's open. See, close, close, close. They're all green now. Just the passenger door is open, and we're going to be closing that in a little short while. Okay, let's get our weather thingy ready. Tilt is usually about 5 degrees up, meaning the radar looks upwards slightly more. This is the rain radar, weather radar, so that it sees stuff above you because you're climbing. And we're going to also close our door once we say hi, goodbye, yeah, yeah, yeah to the passengers. Yeah, yeah, yeah is good. I recommend that. And put it in normal, not locked. Locked means nobody can access it from the outside. You're turning on the landing system. Why? Because if you do a go around, you'll have to use ILS if the airport has it. In this case, it does, of course. Setting the altitude to 30,000. There we go. I can set airport here, I suppose. This didn't quite sync. I thought it was supposed to. Hold on a sec. Yeah, it says yes, but maybe it's between captain and first officer. So this is a manual set. Normally it would be manually set. It's not all adjusted at the same time. Though of course the captain and first officer for sure should have the correct setting because they have to see the same altitude. Okay, and we're going to close the doors now. We assume the passengers are in. Then we look outside. I'm going to go to my SAM. And close. This doesn't seem to retract. There's something wrong with the scenery. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but anyways. Because even with the beacon on, it doesn't seem to work. Oh, chocks maybe. Hold on. Chocks are off. Okay. Turn on APU. Here we go. So we're going to engage the APU now. Turning off external power and putting the plane on strictly on APU power. See, the APU generator just jumped to 30%. That's how you know. Packs are temporarily at fault. APU bleed should be on, by the way. Forgot to turn that on. There we go. APU generator is already on. If you click it again, it'll be off. Be careful, you'll lose all power if you do that. Because right now you've disconnected from external power. See, it says available, not on. Avail. See? Okay. Now we're going to call, make sure chocks are off. Yeah, I'm going to call ready for pushback and get him off. Move back.
Ground to cockpit, plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you are ready. Ground to cockpit, tow is driving up.
There's our little bugger coming. Chocks are off, as you can see. This thing is still connected to us for whatever reason. I can't seem to control it. There's something wrong with the airport, I think. I'm not going to bother the SAM pushback. I don't even know how it works. Okay.
All doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
Now, take a look at how the tug connects to you. It comes in, gets your wheel onto its little platform there, very powerful machine, of course, and then lifts the front gears or the front of the plane off the ground, locks the wheels in place. The plane is being lifted right now.
So connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
Now we're going to release parking brake, which is here. Right here.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Okay, now we can start engines. I just hope the pushback goes smoothly this time. Seems to be going okay. Okay, so let's start our engines. First, technically you would want to turn off packs, though it seems like this thing works with packs on, but let's turn them off. Okay. Engine start mode, ignition start. Master 1, engine 1, on. Make sure your APU bleed is on. This bleed is forced air from the auxiliary power unit, APU. Without this, the engines won't start, literally. Okay. On the 737-800, at least the version that we have from Zibo, just so you know, if you don't have the packs off, both of them, engines will not start. Yeah, very important. But here it does. I just turned the packs off because it's sort of more accepted procedure. That's why. Now, if you look here, engine 1 is starting. N2 and engine 1, it's a bit hard to see. It's green on whatever. Yeah, we can probably make this a bit darker, but not too dark. There. That seems to be okay. Once it says available, it's ready, and then the available disappears. It goes to about 20% N1, if I recall. 20, maybe 21, but I think it's 19.8 or something like that. There we go. It says available, engine 1 started. Let's do engine 2.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Setting parking brake. Yes.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Everything looks good here. Perfect. Yeah, and N2 is increasing. Exhaust gas temperatures in Celsius, by the way, increasing. It's asking me, do you want to disconnect or reconnect and do it again? Well, I'm going to disconnect. This is for the pushback tow truck.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal will be on the left. We'll see you next time. Have a safe flight.
Hand signal on the left. What does that mean? It means you have to confirm that he has the pin in his hand, and that means he really has disconnected the pin. Because if he forgets the pin in there, I think the wheel won't turn and you'll have one hell of a mess. Anyways, now this guy always seems to go out of my range, so I'm gonna have to do this a different way. Yeah, like that. The pin, you can kind of see it's pretty small, but there it is. That's a thumb up, that's not the pin. It's kind of weird, but anyway. So you might think that's the pin, but that's his thumb. There we go, it's done. Now we're ready. Accept. Taxi. We don't need the wing on at this point. Runway turn-off lights on. Nose taxi lights on. Packs can be turned back on. APU bleed off. APU off. There we go. Everything else fine. Taxi on, runway turn off. Strobe off. They set it to auto, but I don't know if it even works in auto in this simulator anyways, so I don't bother with that. I believe what auto does, by the way, in real life, when you're crossing a runway, not the runway you're taking off, you turn on your flashers, meaning the strobe. Not the landing lights, I don't think, but just the flashes, because people should see you in case there's a plane approaching that runway about to land. They should see that there's a plane on the runway. The flashes make it very clear and visible, hopefully. Now this, I had learned that the transponder mode from one of the checklists is used when you're taxiing. When you're about to take off, you set it to TARA, just so you know. This I normally set at normal. Now this is the TCAS, collision avoidance system. Above means it's more sensitive to what's above you. Below means it's more sensitive to what planes are below you. Normal means it's kind of both. I usually just leave it at normal because, to be honest, in real life, I guess I'll have to follow their procedure for the airline, but you're interested really at all times with what's below and what's above. You never know. But of course, when you're climbing and taking off, you're more interested in what's above you. That's why they set it to above. So here we go. We're taxiing. Get AVS here. And I'm going to save the flight at this point because everything's important now. So we're going from Kyiv to Frankfurt. Taxi. I'm going to say taxi 1. All right. Turn on the chronometer. I'll show you. Increase engine thrust a little too much here, but okay. It's probably a bit sensitive. You notice the checklist is showing here. This is one thing that's pretty amazing about the Airbus A320 that had this long before any Boeing 737 or anything else did. Anything in blue you still need to do. Auto brake has to be at max, which I can do now. Cabin check, meaning communicate with the people in the cabin, the flight attendants, purser, that everything's okay, cabin's ready for takeoff. Things are stowed under the seats and all the doors are closed for the storage bins up overhead. Flaps should be takeoff, I'll be doing that later. So here we go. Check your right. Well, this guy's blocking me, but anyway. Left. Beautiful Ukrainian Airlines. Bright yellow and sky blue. Check the cabin. We're pretty much at runway 18. We can start the flaps here. Flaps 2 is going to be the setting. And test takeoff configuration. Important button to see here. This guy. Now when you press that, above you'll see TO config normal. We're good. This shows you TCAS on standby, cabin is ready, everything else is ready. Spoilers armed, flaps and takeoff, signs on, cabin ready, auto brake max, right there. Now, you got two other things to do. We're coming up, little advance on the throttles, is you turn on, once you get to this flashing line here, flashing lights I should say, which is like the line for stopping, okay? You would turn on your transponder fully and your lights, landing lights, to full. Well, there's only one set in this airplane. One other thing I do here, if I'm not sure, is quickly calibrate the pedals. It's the most important part that gets uncalibrated in the plane. In my case, I have MFG pedals, the crosswinds, stop. Okay, now. Let's go to our strobe on. Landing lights, take off at the nose on. Seat belts, remind everybody. Nose smoking is always on, don't forget. Okay. You notice two are on here instead of one. Yeah, that's the way the Airbus A320 series works. There are the landing lights. Now, I'm going to just double check with the calibration of the pedals here. Go to joystick, change to MFG Crosswind version 2, and we do a calibration. Right toe brake, left toe brake, right toe brake. There's no other axis, so you ignore and you click next. It says let go of your controls and then click to calibrate. This is the center point. There we go. Done. You can now get on the runway. Normally you would get clearance from ATC, of course, before you do anything like this. They would say either cleared for takeoff or taxi on the runway and hold. There could be another plane that just landed, has to get off the runway. I'm checking traffic here. All set. Just line up properly and increase throttle to about 40% and go. Autopilot on. Flashing here, lever climb. So you set your lever to climb mode. Throttle lever, that is. You can see the notch, whoops, lined up, that little big notch here lined up with CL on both sides. Flaps 1. Forgot to turn on the TCAS here. Okay, there we go. And up. Flaps. Now, one thing about ignition mode for the engine start lever. If it's turbulent or whatever, it's going to be recommended that you keep ignition on constant. This is not turbulent, it's very light, so I can switch back engine ignition start knob back to whatchamacall, normal, or flight if you wish. Autopilot's been on. Auto throttle is on by the system. I don't even need to activate that. Once you push the lever, it assumes auto throttle. This is new, LVRA Sim. I don't know what this is yet, because it's my first flight with the latest version of ToLiss. I had not realized, silly me, that there was an update. Anyway, I had to check the forum yesterday to find out that we're up to version 1.32. I was at version 1.30. So. Notice the optimal climb altitude has gone up to cruise altitude of 292. So we're approaching the 300 that I set. Once you reach, the increments are 2,000 feet. In reality, I think it's might be 1,000, but I always tend to use the 2,000 rule. Okay, we passed the transition altitude, so you have to set the altimeter by pulling it and making it standard pressure. Transition altitude was 10,010 feet for Kiev. For Ukraine, most likely is the same for the whole country. In Europe, every country seems to have their own transition altitude, whereas North America, it's 18,000 feet. I think Mexico is also 18,000. Might be different, but Canada, USA is 18,000 feet transition altitude. The point at which you change your altimeter from actual ground level setting to standard temperature, standard pressure. But Germany's 5,000, England I think it's 6,000, I forget. Somebody else I think it's 3,000. It's all over the place. And it's kind of annoying to say the least, but anyways, you get used to it. One other thing past 10,000 feet. We should also have turned off the nose lights because the gear is retracted and the landing lights retracted. Wing lights could have been turned on at takeoff. It probably should have been, but anyway. Again, doing the video honestly distracts me a bit. That's why probably it's best for me to reuse an actual checklist. But that just makes everything much longer also to explain on the video. This is interesting. Wait a minute, MCT? Isn't the lever at climb? I see. You notice it's doing asymmetrical thrust. 92.1 for the left engine, engine 1, 88.6 for the right engine. My levers are on my control exactly next to each other. Why? Probably to compensate for current. There's wind directly from the left pushing literally towards the plane, even though it's only 9 knots. Kind of interesting. This was not there before. But the plane is flying fine. It's on the route. So no issues there. 0.1 R here means we're 0.1 nautical miles to the right of the actual flight path. It's the accuracy, if you wish, of how closely the plane is following the flight path. This is set to auto save every 5 minutes, the ToLiss. So if you forget to save your own, it'll save every 5 minutes of flight time. So that's good. Now I just saved a second save. On top you see Kiev, Frankfurt, climb 1. First stage of the climb. I'm going to save at least one other during the climb, so I have specific saves that I can go back to if I need to. Normally you'd want to save before you increase engine thrust and before you take off. I tend to forget that sometimes. I'm too busy with the takeoff. So let's check our optimal altitude. It's approaching 300. Now, when do you change this is what I was going to say before. When do you increase it to 3200? Well, when it reaches about 315, the optimal recommended. Or let's say anything over 310. So it has to be well over 1,000 feet above your actual cruise altitude. Is about that. That's how I go. The actual rules might be slightly different, but I don't know if this plane has any indication showing step climb. The Boeing 747-400 has that. The 8 should have it too, Dash 8. But that's the Boeing. I don't know about the Airbus. They may not have simulated it if the Airbus does have it. It probably does. I don't see why not. Okay, so we're climbing. Not much to do right now, just wait. Everything's good. Past the BBW01 point. In our departure. It shows here FL120 in blue with a line underneath in the chart. What does that mean? That means you have to be at flight level 120 or 12,000 feet or above, not below. If you have a line over it, it would mean you have to be at flight level 120 or below. CAFAT also, it's saying at least flight level 120 you have to be at. I'm already at 23, flight level 230, 233 in fact, so no problems there. Just going to close some of the charts I don't need anymore, the ground charts. Now we can, by the way, turn off the the wipers. We don't need them anymore. There's the forward and aft cargo temperature, 24 degrees Celsius. That's pretty good, cozy. You can probably bring them down slightly. So I don't know what this does, how many degrees this goes down by, but that's a bit too cold, no? Again, if there are animals in there, I'd probably keep it at 24, because they will get nervous anyways. You see this blue line from going from the bottom pointing to the right? That's top of climb, meaning that the point at which the computer estimates you will be at your maximum currently set cruise altitude, in this case 30,000 feet. So, and we're getting there. We're only at 30,000 our cruise for now because of the weight of the plane. So it's optimal now at 299. So we'll be waiting for a while still before we climb to 32,000 feet. Right now we're still going to be going to 30,000 feet. Notice here in the climb progress page under performance, in the phase, flight level 300, distance 10. So you have 9 nautical miles left to reach cruise altitude. You can see our altitude here, almost 29,000 feet. We're at our cruise altitude, 30,000. It's going to alt cruise, nav mode, and Mach. We're flying. The magenta shows plan speed, set speed by the computer or by yourself. And the yellow is your actual speed. In this case, they're matching. So we're flying at cruise. At a certain point after takeoff, you will switch your navigation display option from constraint, CSTR, to ARPT, airports. This is to see the airports that are nearest you in case of emergency landing or something. You can also talk to people that were passing over such and such places as you pass them, like pilots do sometimes. Here's where we're flying now. This is in local alphabet. Now would be Kiev, There's Warsaw, Poland, Prague, Czech Republic, Bratislava, Slovakia, Budapest, Hungary. We're going kind of towards Berlin, but we're really going over about here. It doesn't seem to show. Oh, there's Frankfurt. Okay. That's Frankfurt. So we're going to follow the plane. Give you an idea where we are. Now I'm going to check the weather at our destination, see how it's going. EDDF, Frankfurt Am Main. 27th of the month, 1850 Zulu. Let's see how recent that is. We're at 1928 Zulu, so it's about 40 minutes ago. Winds are 060 degrees at 09 knots. It's Savok, nothing significant, clear. Temperature 4, dew point -3, altimeter 1032. Which, if you like, I tend to do something this doesn't have with the Boeing, like the Boeing, is change the altimeter in advance to the setting at the destination. We can change it again, of course, so that when you get off standard mode, you see the altimeter that was supposed to be at your landing airport. Quick note about the MCDU. Destination, EDDF 07 right, the runway. Estimated arrival time, UTC 0804. Distance, 795 nautical miles. Estimated fuel on board, EFOB, 4.2, 4,200 kilograms. You check at the current time, UTC is 6:12. So we'll be there in 1 hour, 50 minutes almost. One other thing to note, we were supposed to have zeroed the clock and chronometer before takeoff. So this has been running since I started taxiing, rather than from the point of takeoff, meaning revving the engines up. Pilots reset that. I don't know why they do a chronometer run during the taxi to record the amount of taxi, I suppose, the amount of time. I suppose if it's extended, like there's a big lineup for takeoff, that counts for something as far as pay goes, because airlines pay stewardesses, flight attendants by hour of flight. Not sure about pilots though, how they work. It's to log their flight hours, I believe they do that. You notice here we have advanced a bit, and optimal cruise level shows 315. So we're going to be first updating this in the flight computer, MCDU, and then changing it on the mode control panel, for lack of a better word, and pushing single dot with the dot that appears on the side. That means it's managed, and it's starting to climb now to 32,000 feet, flight level 320. You can at any time control your speed by clicking here, 2 dots. I believe it's pulling. And if you reduce speed, the climb rate would increase. Like this. We're at Mach 0.75 now. If I go to 0.72, you notice the climb rate's increasing. It's not decreasing thrust. Thrust remains the same. This is all commanded by the autopilot. There's the blue triangle, diamond if you wish. It increases climb rate until it gets close to the speed you want, then it reduces climb rate until the speed matches, and then continues on at that climb rate. We're reaching 320 right now, the flight level. I'm going to put speed back to managed speed, meaning totally automatically controlled. And here it goes. And you see this little arrow, yellow arrow here at the end. It means speed trend is increasing. If it's pointing down, it'll be speed trend decreasing. I don't do VOR flying, but you would normally tune your very high frequency omnidirectional radio, VOR, to the one or two main VORs that you could expect to use when you're landing. Here's Frankfurt ILS approach or localizer approach to runway 7 right. You notice here, missed approach, something you should always be looking at. Climb straight ahead to DME 1 nautical mile, D1.0, distance away from, inbound to FFM, D20 to FRD. Then turn right to intercept radial 086 FFM outbound to a distance of 8 nautical miles from FFM, or distance of 10.8 nautical miles from FRD. So you have two main things. There's also RID here. You can program FFM and RID, for example, or FFM and FRD. Though I don't, I would probably put FFM and RID, which is right here. So here's FFM. I'm setting auto tune. I don't use the radio here manually, but you can. And then the second VOR I'm going to be setting to RID 112.2. You type RID and it should find you or give you an option which is which. Again, RID, it asks you which frequency, shows you the distance. So there are two RIDs, 306 nautical miles and 3,953 nautical miles somewhere else on the planet. So you're picking this guy, the first one. And see, they're already manually tuned. The course you don't have to set, though you can. This is set by the system, but you can also set it yourself. LS frequency landing system or ILS. And the course slope is the descent slope, 3 degrees, 2.8 degrees, whatever, which is indicated usually in the chart. See, 3.00 descent angle. Here's our Frankfurt approach, star, standard approach, which we'll be looking at a little later. So we are approaching the descent point coming up, though it's still 120 miles away. That white line you saw just over here after Demab there, this guy. Just so you know. So we're going to check again the weather and go from there, see how it's going, whether we're still landing in the same runway. So let's check our weather at our destination, EDDF, see what's going on. Updated at 1920 Zulu on the 27th of the month. Winds are from 040 at 6 knots, 06 knots. Savok, temperature 3, dew point -4, meaning the point at which humidity in the air condenses. No, not freezes, condenses. Well, freezes actually also. Altimeter 1032, no sig. So we're pretty good. No,
Traffic.
no clouds, really. We had a traffic warning here. There's somebody passing 500 feet below me, if I understand correctly. No big deal. So, because Frankfurt has 2 runways, which you'll see in a second, there's our ground chart. 2 main runways, actually it has 4 runways. I'm talking 2 runways that one of the 2 that we'll be landing on most likely. The other one is a different direction totally. If the winds change, we follow that. But 18, I'm not, okay, looks like only runway 18's open here. Okay. This one I don't think I've used much. I'm not really sure how this works. I'd have to look at, yeah, weird. The number's not showing. Anyways, we're landing on 7 right. Okay, this guy. If the winds had shifted, they have to be, you know, less than 90 degrees from the direction of the runway. We may have to switch to the opposite direction. In this case, runway 25, left, center, or runway 25, right. Now, this is a mid-sized plane. It can easily handle even a takeoff from this runway. It shouldn't be an issue. Even fully loaded, I'm pretty sure. You'd have to check your charts from Airbus. Takeoff charts, but landing charts, no issue at all. You can check it as part of procedure, but this plane can land on a runway that's as short as roughly about 6,000 feet, I think, 6,500, maybe less. So no problems there. So right now our winds were showing 060 as we checked earlier, so there's no issue about landing at the same place. Otherwise we would switch runways and approaches, stars, but we're not going to do that. There's no need. The wind is still the same. Okay, now we have a little indication here. Enter dest data, destination data. You see the optimals at 332. There's no point step climbing at this point at 340 because we're going to be descending in, if you check performance, 28, 27 nautical miles, so no point. Okay, so enter destination data, which means enter your approach thingy. Now, something I don't understand with the Airbus, and I tend to always take manual control of the speed here. Forgive me, you probably think I'm dumb or something, but it slows you down like crazy. I guess it gives you time to enter your destination data. Then I don't know what it does. I think it speeds you up again. I'm not too sure. Or it puts the engines to idle. There's my white arrow right before Solvo after DMAB. So top of descent is about 21 nautical miles. Okay, so we're getting ready. So I'm gonna actually keep my speed by taking manual control so it doesn't slow me down. Activate approach phase, confirm approach phase. Now we enter the information, sorry, not this, enter the information for the weather, which we just checked. Refresh it again, 1950, 030 at 6 knots. Altimeter 1032 still, that hasn't changed, oddly enough. Temperature 3 degrees. Here is where the wind has changed, 030 at 6 knots. You can probably put 30, but that's fine. Transition flight level, very important, 5,000 feet. Flight level 50. It's not 50,000, so. Now, the other thing, go up here so you can see what you're doing. At all times, keep an eye on the instruments. Don't forget that. We can have this pop up here. Now, MDA or DH, not both. Minimum decision altitude, decision height, or minimum descent altitude, excuse me, decision height. Okay, so, whoops. Okay, this doesn't work. Get to our minimum descent altitude before you decide whether it's a land or a no land. DAH ILS 528 feet, 200 feet above runway. Airport altitude 364, runway altitude 328. So basically it's runway altitude plus 200 feet, the decision altitude. Descent altitude 528. So that's what you're putting into your computer. MDA 528. That's when you decide whether you can land or not, basically. Full. Flaps full. Approach speed 149. KIAS, knots indicated airspeed. V landing speed, VLS 145 knots. Okay, so here we go. Where's our and that's it. I think we should have descended by now. Hold on, let's check our charts. Talking to you and showing everything, it took longer than expected. Okay. Interesting. No altitude restrictions here. 4,000, 4,000. Okay. The final approach altitude, the initial approach is 4,000 feet. Okay, so here we are. We're going past Karax right now. Okay, we're good. So we're going to reduce this to 4,000 feet, basically. No issues there. Computer is controlling the speed. Now, unlike a Boeing, you don't touch the controls for the throttle. You leave them. Well, Airbus has fixed points along the throttle quadrant, as you, I believe you saw already. Takeoff, go around. Flex MCT, which is kind of an intermediate throttle. Climb, which is where the throttle remains throughout climb and cruise. And then there's zero, etc. Okay, this is reverse section. So now if you want to descend more, you can select either manually to descend more from level change, vertical speed. I'm gonna have to move this over a bit. Push the level out, that's something else. There's my altitude. The dot means it's managed by the computer, the descent rate, not you. If you want to descend more, you can select this, 2 dots, which is your management, or you can increase speed. Well, I don't think you want to increase speed at this point. Let's do a save after DF 437 point. One other thing you want to do is remind everybody to fasten their seat belts. Check your pressurization just in case there's a problem with air conditioning. Temperatures are good. Okay. Cabin altitude 6,070 feet. Vertical speed descent rate because of the pressurizations minus 290 descent, 290 feet per minute descent. For the cabin, not the actual descent rate, which is about 1,400 feet, as you can see here. Okay, now, bleed air, just to double check. Engines, APU should be off. Wheels, flight controls, etc. Okay, so this is going way too slowly for my liking. I don't know why it's doing that. I'm going to 2,500 feet because I need some catching up to do as far as I'm concerned. You can increase the speed, no problem there. 5 times your ground speed is the typical thing. I'm going more than that right now. 384. True airspeed takes the wind into account. We have lower airspeed than ground speed. Why? Because the wind is coming from the back. So the speed of the wind going from front to back of plane is counteracted by the wind going from back to front of plane, which is 42 knots at 56 degrees. Magnetic, I believe. DF 652. How does that happen? Okay. Now, check your radio, see if it's tuned itself properly. Which you won't see here. You'll see it only here in the computer. IFSE 110.95. Bingo. Course, this is always 1 degree off. I never understand why, but I just leave it the way it is. It's totally weird to begin with. Anyways, so that's that. Save our flight. I didn't do cruise 2. Oh. Descent. By the way, the ToLiss is rock steady. Absolutely rock steady, which is a heck of a lot more I can say for the flight factor, which is totally unstable. I had a flight with it recently and it kept crashing when I was trying to make modifications to the alternate airport in the FMC, in the MCDU, the computer, in other words. So there's really no point for me ever flying the flight factor. It's $90 wasted from the looks of it. So, because they have an approach where they've rewritten the whole code and they're having a simulation run within the simulation, which is X-Plane. And they have their own simulation running. It's nonsense. And other stuff that the frame rates are super slow. If you look at the frame rates now for the ToLiss, you'll be quite amazed. In fact, I'll keep them on if you want. Right now it's showing 37, 39. My specs are just the basic Asus motherboard, obviously. E550, AMD E550 chipset. 32 gigs of 4000 megahertz RAM. CPU is the big one here. It's the Ryzen 7 5800X, excellent CPU. It's the video card that's a little slower, but I won't upgrade that until we have reasonable prices and reasonable availability. The video card is an 8 GB VRAM, AMD Radeon 5700, RX 5700. Okay, no overclocking anywhere. So the CPU is super, as far as I'm concerned. Of course, X-Plane will have to optimize itself. It is not the person's problem if X-Plane hasn't been optimized, and I think that is the biggest issue here, not our systems. Now let's slow down a bit because we are going too fast. We are approaching the 10,000 foot limit where we have to be at 250 knots. So we got to slow down a bit. I'm going to put the speed brake on also, just to show you where we are on the map. Ugh, a little messed up here. Can't even see Frankfurt, wherever it is. Anyway, that's blah blah for you. I have no idea where Frankfurt is from here. It's probably somewhere this way. Yeah, we're past Frankfurt. Heidelberg, Mannheim. ILS. Let's remove the ILSs for a second. Okay, I'm putting on the speed brake because we need to slow down. Yeah, the map is messed up. Can't even tell me where I am. I mean, can't even show you Frankfurt. Never mind. We'll just go to our route list here. Here we are. That's where we are on the approach chart, the star. Turning on landing lights. Turning on wing lights. We're reaching 10,000 feet. Transition is 5,000, don't forget. Making our turn now. I'm going to remove the frame rates here for you. I can always turn it on, the frame rates again. Performance. Maybe we're taxiing at Frankfurt. With the ToLiss, the frame rates basically never go down below about 24, maybe 22 frames per second on some heavy airports. Okay, and that's commendable because it's fine. 24 or 30 would be better, but you know, again, this is not my system nor yours unless you have a older system. It's X-Plane. And the add-ons, of course. Now I'm adjusting my... Yeah, I gotta really adjust my speed here. Pretty soon I'll be engaging flaps. I think I can probably set automatic altitude control now by the computer. So I'm gonna Just control speed right now. This shaking of the plane signifies turbulence, at least the way X-plane does it. All right, flaps 1. Now, auto brake. Medium. Right here. Brake fan would be on most, well, yeah, probably. Now, it won't go down below 4,000. Better not, because I set it as such. Landing system on. There we go. Now, with that, you'll see MDA 528, autopilot 1, IFSC. There is the ILS signal, 110.95 frequency, 21 nautical miles away. So we can certainly ease the descent rate. We can keep at 220 for now because we're pretty far away. We have reached the transition altitude. So I have switched altimeter to 1032. Let's just double check that the weather has not changed. 1032, 030 at 6 knots. Okay. Now, after this, you're going to set this to hundreds of nautical miles and turn the knob to slightly above minimum decision height, which would be 600 feet. And go. Reduce speed. Turning on the VORs. There should be a restriction here of 4,000 feet. Altitude constraint. There we go. At ROPSA, which is right here. Very important. You don't want to be lower than that. Air traffic has to space people and everything. So now, what do we have here? Distance 12 nautical miles. Okay, we're good. 180 knots is okay for that speed, for that distance. Flaps 2. And you can probably go to flaps 3 and activate approach mode. See, Cat 3 dual, glide scope is being captured with an asterisk, localizer is captured, speed, glide scope's captured. My altitude is showing 600. I'll be going to manual before then, so no issues there. We're still 10 nautical miles away, so we can increase speed a bit if we want. And I'm going to save this, well, maybe a little later. And I'm going to bring down the gear now. Now, speed-wise, we're okay. Let's slow down a bit. Don't forget the approach speed as indicated. 149 and 145. There's a bit of a wind. Yeah. 10 knots above approach speed and flaps full. And you also turn on gear lights. Landing lights should have been on. Sorry about that. Landing lights are turned on at 10,000 feet. Turned off climbing at 10,000 feet. So, just so you know, that's accepted pretty much anywhere in the world unless they have some special... Now, cabin check, spoilers arm. That's my checklist. Showing in blue. Check the cabin, which is right here. Make sure everybody's okay. One last time. Okay. Fasten your seatbelt sign one last time, and we're good. Now I'm a little over the so-called approach speed, but I'm at 1,500 feet, 1480 above ground, so I'm going to reduce it slightly. 9 knots, that's pretty okay as wind. Now let's save this as final, please. There we go. Cabin ready. Alright. About the takeover manual control. I'm at 1,000 feet. Now, switch to nav mode because this is easier to follow. And I'm disengaging autopilot and auto throttle. And this thing always seems to trail to one side.
500.
And believe me, it's not me. And it's been calibrated, so.
400.
Adjusting trim.
300.
Now it's going the other side.
100 above.
Yeah, well, it happens. Anyways,
200.
this is a simulation. It's not. This wouldn't happen to me in real life. I'm sure of it. Okay, there it goes.
100.
There it goes. You're centering. Perfect.
50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. Retard. 10. Retard. 5. Retard. Retard. Retard.
Good landing. Very smooth, actually, and very straight. Doesn't usually happen to me. Nice landing. Engines in reverse. You see REV here. And disengage auto brake or it's gonna stop the damn thing. Okay, here we go. Now, Frankfurt. My left. Very good landing. Better than I expected. Okay, now stop. Going any further, you have to turn off a few things. First, the transponder. Put it in transponder mode. I think this goes to auto. Now, Landing lights are off. Strobe is off. Wing is off. Nose is at taxi. Everything else is fine. Landing lights retracted. Runway turn off and taxi lights are on. Now we can proceed. You notice here, this happens after you land quite a bit. Brake hot. So we turn on the brake fan. So I'm taxiing to the gate at Frankfurt am Main. Looks like a couple of gates are free. The pink ones show plane. The one I'm going to pick is this A321 here. Looks about right. So that's where we're going. About to cross a runway, so whoops. Sorry. Gotta check, make sure there's nobody coming. I got a couple free actually. It looks like this one's free too. A321 is right here, as you can see on the more clear chart. Alpha 25, this guy wants to pass, let him pass because he'll go past anyway. Not terribly smart, these guys. Okay. A321 is on this side. Okay, so we're almost there. There's A321, right there. That's our gate. Lights off. Runway turnout off. Start APU. I usually use APU at the end, not ground power. Transponder standby. Technically it should be on normal, but it doesn't seem to set itself there. Okay. Chronometer 2 hours 33 minutes basically. While we're waiting for the APU to run without a load, I'm just going to set these to their default 0 or lowest possible values. QNH, I leave it because that's the actual QNH, so I don't really see why I should set it to standard, but anyway. Whoops. There we go. Let's start the APU. Dome can be bright if you want. Though it's daylight, so it's not a big deal. This captain person is supposed to be in the on position, but it was not. Again, the default save resume sometimes messes things up. Standby compass could be off. These are already off, except this one. Sorry. Okay, now we can shut down the engines. Engine 1 first. Notice it's still showing hot, so I've left the brake fan on. What does that mean? That means this. The temperature in the wheels and, well, brakes mainly, but that area during the braking. But it's not too hot. It could be much hotter than, it could be like 400 Celsius, 450 even, which is extremely hot. So one engine's off. Let's do the other one off now. Now, APU bleed on. Engine bleed can probably be turned off at this point, but whatever. I wonder how they do in real life, because you might get funny, I don't know, I think that they might get funny fumes, but hopefully the system's smart enough, but it may not be. Okay, now the beacon can be turned off because we're not moving anymore, the red light. Nav and logo stays on until the very end. Seatbelts off because the engines have stopped. Snow smoking stays on as usual. Now, let's turn on, open, first the cargo doors. These guys here, 1, 2, and this guy. Really great weather at Frankfurt, by the way. Can't be better than that. At least sunny-wise. Now we can turn this off. And I don't bother with the darkness adjustments. Okay, so that's open. Now, I'm gonna check and see if Sam can handle this. Samity Sam, yes it can. It has 2 blue indications, and in fact it has 2 jetties. All right. For once I actually get yip yip. So one's gonna go to this door, the front one, and one's gonna go to that door. Okay. 25.2. Look at that. Beautiful. Close this. What a wonderful thing. Guess who makes the scenery, by the way? Actually, this one's Aerosoft. Yeah, actually, it's not Mr. X. My Munich scenery is Mr. X, but there we go. Open the doors. There. You can also check by moving backwards from the cockpit that the doors are open. There. That's the jetty. We move back a little further, not sure how far actually. This one's very hard to adjust. I'm hoping X-Plane 12 has slightly better camera system. This is extremely sensitive. There it is. There's the second door. Okay, and we're all set. Now, nav and logo, well, stays on for now. Except for one pump, I believe you would turn them all off. The fuel pumps. Why? Because I believe the APU feeds off of that. See? I mean, one pump right here. One of two can be turned off. 4,200 kilograms of fuel, that's pretty good. And that's pretty much it. We're done. Turning off radios now. And also the final pump. The other radios. First officer side, captain side. APU bleed off. Nav and logo can stay on. That's fine. It's going to turn off when you do it. This can go off. Emergency lights off. Non-smoking usually stays on. That's fine. And APU off. Batteries off. There's Frankfurt Am Main. The highway is right out there, I believe, unless there's a further away highway, but I believe we passed right through here when we passed in real life with my tour bus by Globus in 2005. And there's Frankfurt itself.